Alright, I played 10 chapters of Cerulean Crescent so far, really enjoy it, and here's why. I really can't do Cerulean Crescent justice just by explaining what it's all about, so I'm gonna start off with the tutorial that it shows you right away, which is excellent, and it really sets the tone very well for what the rest of the hack is. So let me show you that, and then we'll get into long-winded scripted explanations and opinions. So I have a slow run of this on my stream VODs if you're interested, but basically what this tutorial teaches you is how wild the player phase actions can get. You got this lord over here, Ellery, and if she kills someone, then all adjacent units to her will get an extra turn. So it's kind of like Dance of the Goddess and Raphael's Vigor from Radiant Dawn. And all these characters individually kind of explain what they're going to do, and you can also check their menus to explain what it all is. But just to give a quick impression, Lindros here has a personal tome with 3 to 10 range but no damage output. But he has lunge, so he can just swap places with almost any enemy on the map. And after that he gets an extra turn, which he can then use to, for example, kill that enemy. In this tutorial, all we're doing is saving kids, all of whom are in peril. If you don't do anything about them dying, then they'll just die right away and you lose the map. But the rest of the game setup isn't really like this. It is more relaxed, but this is just to show you how it works and making sure you understand it before you move on. So this Armor Knight has a swap function, which is like a teleporting swap. So he swaps places with an allied unit or an NPC. And that saves that kid from dying to the soldier, who's now going to suicide into him. And then lastly, there's a dancer who revitalizes not only her target, but also herself. And then here she revitalizes this pirate that can go over here, start riding his ballista boat, shoot this guy with his 3 to 5 range powder blast, inflicting 1/3 of HP to this guy with some sort of savage blow-like effect. And the dancer can also just attack to kill this soldier. And that's all in one turn. Now, if you're intimidated by all this, and I can understand why you would be, because it all went by really fast, this is just the ceiling of your potential, like the upper bit of it, but the map design doesn't really make you go through all this. It's not a puzzle-like Fire Emblem game where you have to find a very specific set of moves or you cannot progress. Most maps are more like just somewhat difficult Fire Emblem maps where, you're kind of expected to go for a goal, some kind of anti-turtling incentive, but generally it just kind of plays like a normal Fire Emblem game, maybe slightly harder than most, but not that much harder than most vanilla games. How do I put this? It's just pretty chill for the most part, but you have all these options to make it much easier on yourself. So if you feel like going maximum sweat, maximizing everything, you probably want to use one of these modifiers to make it a bit harder. Misery mode. You can also play mellow mode to make it a bit easier on yourself. This gives you what it says on the screen, +4 damage, defense, res, whatever, and plus hit and avoid. But it's like an easy mode, so you can turn it off and on however you like. I don't think you can do it mid-game, but you can toggle that, or you can turn on misery mode if you want to make it harder on yourself. I'm playing without any of these modifiers on, personally, and I just find that the hack it's a little bit tricky. What also helps a lot is that you can rewind by 1 turn, by just resetting the game and doing resume. So even if you mess up in 1 turn and someone dies, you don't have to do everything over again, which is great because due to all these refreshing shenanigans that you have access to, turns can get very long, and this encourages you to just try things and do them, and if they don't work out, you adjust them a little bit, but you don't have to do the whole map over again. And even restarting 1 turn can be quite a bit of work, so I'm really glad that that is in there. And this also encourages you to not have to think about everything in advance, but rather piece it together over multiple attempts, so it makes it easier to turn it from a plan into something that you're actually doing with action, so you're constantly moving. It does make me a bit annoyed when I'm playing that I feel like I have to milk every turn for all it's worth, especially the Lord, who just refreshes 3 or 4 people per turn, is really tempting to try and maximize, and it's hard for me to hold myself back and say, okay, it's fine to just not do it this turn, or do a couple people and that's it. And there's a couple characters like that where it's really tempting to try and do everything possible to give them the most damage possible and the most turns possible, but the maps aren't that demanding in the default difficulty, which is great. because it makes the gameplay high ceiling if you want it to be, but you can also just take a turn off and just say, okay, I'm gonna just fight on enemy phase for this one. One of the best and most unique features of this game is the auto repair weapons. Many characters, including the main one, have personal weapons with very low amounts of uses with auto repair. So instead of having a rapier with 4 uses for the whole game, you get like 4 uses to spend in a chapter and then it gets repaired for the next one. This is really nice because it feels like you can use them without worrying about running out, but you still have an incentive to conserve them for later in the chapter if you feel like it. Everyone also has a personal skill and often several other perks that make them worth using. My impression is that this makes every character feel really good, and it results in this weird paradox where you want to use everyone but you can't because you have a deployment limit. It's a first world problem for sure, and I really cannot count this as a negative. If anything, it provides replay value. But I do know that for 99% of the people playing these fan-made games, they will only play each one once, especially in this day and age where there is just so many other ones worth trying. So it's a little sad to have to bench someone you like because there are just so many other good units to try. At least the difficulty curve doesn't seem to be so steep that a unit has to be deployed every map to keep up with the enemies. You can mix your roster up a bit depending on who you need. As for the story, my overall impression is very positive. You're following a bunch of adventurers on a journey throughout the titular Crescent. This is definitely not just the story of a noble on the run from their homeland trying to reclaim it from the evil dragon cult. It's a group of people, each with their own thoughts on the situation and their own relationships with each other. I'm not exactly a very experienced fiction writer, and English is not my first language, so I found myself stumbling over the dialogue every now and then when reading it out on stream. But generally, I think it's complex enough to be interesting, but not so verbose that it's pretentious. It's a good middle ground. And the characters are enhanced by these little town sections where you can listen to them talk to each other, which helps a lot because you're not just viewing them through the lens of the protagonist. There is one drawback to this approach though, and that's that there's no fish out of water character who is new to all this and needs everything explained to them. People talk to each other like they know what's going on because they know what's going on. It's very rare for someone to say a line like, as you know, and then they would dump a whole bunch of backstory. I think that's generally good, but it can make it a little hard to make out exactly what is going on, especially if you're like me and you only play this game once or twice a week with breaks in between. Maybe it's better if you do play it every day, I don't know. Between that and the fact that the start of the story just kind of throws you into the deep end right away, I think it can be a little hard to follow what is going on sometimes, but as it goes on, you kind of get more and more of a clue. This game makes good use of the guide feature in the original Sacred Stones, where you can check on certain backstories at your own leisure. The town sections also serve as a place to pick up quests, which are also tracked in this guide window. These are good reminders of what quests you are on. The quest instructions in this menu are pretty clear, but nonetheless I found myself almost forgetting to do some quests and only being saved by chat. Might be because of my multitasking, like the way I play the game is different than the way most people would play the game. But still, if you don't want to miss anything, I would recommend maybe looking it up or asking a friend who has played the hack to help you make sure you don't miss anything. Lastly, I do want to shout out the artwork, both the musical and the visual, done for this hack. It looks absolutely amazing. Of course, the FE8 and other games assets are recognizable in this, but nonetheless, it has its own distinct look. Especially the portraits, I think, are just very well done. I don't have a very articulate or precise way of backing that opinion up. I just really like looking at it, and I really like listening to the music of this game. Anyway, my overall opinion, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear, it's very positive. Of course, with ROM hacks, or as I should probably call them, fan games like this, the game is free. All you stand to lose from trying it is some of your free time. I'm sure it's possible to not enjoy that little time that you would spend with it, but if it's not for you, then I'm sure you'll find that out within like 2 chapters. But I think this one appeals for anyone who enjoys Fire Emblem, regardless of how experienced you are, how much of a challenge you want, how you weigh the importance of story versus gameplay, because it's all well calibrated, it's all well written, and it's all enjoyable. Thank you so much to Rivian for making this. I'm having a blast, and thank you for watching.